Hey, everybody, it's your friend James Shaw. Thank you so much for being here with us. We are doing what we do every week, which is interview elite people who are doing elite things, and today is no different. I'm excited to chat with Wilson because you built a really successful business in the Bay Area. I'm in one Bay Area, you're in the real one. And so we're going to unpack what you're doing with really going all in on your farm community and making it work. But would you introduce yourself to everyone so they know who you are and where you are and a little bit about your business?
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Wilson Leung. I am a part of Keller here in the peninsula, the San Francisco Bay Area. I have a team of about 24 agents. We have 6 staff members. Last year we did 160 plus million. Our best year was 21, 22, and we did, I think, 251 and 220 respectively. So we're down a little bit. I think sellable units is down about 40% in our market. And I'm excited to share what I can to help whoever's watching this.
I appreciate you sharing. And, it makes sense that a large team like yours would see an impact from a market shift. When you're doing that kind of volume, you're going to be impacted by it, but you're still doing a huge amount of business. And I think one thing you kind of figured out was you wanted to go in all in on community, but it didn't start that way. Like you're a farm now and you're building it, but you were smiling and dialing and had your fingers crossed and hoping you could meet somebody for a while doing cold calling. How did you transition from pick up the phone to get out in the community type person?
Great question. Probably like many agents, we wanted to conduct business with the least amount of friction. So calling and being comfortable in my office, which is calling cold is uncomfortable, but it's more comfortable than going out on a field and knocking on doors and talking to strangers belly to belly. But I started with cold calling. I used Mojo Dials, triple line dialer, and I circle prospected for a good, fair, probably year and a half of early in my career. And I was able to get a lot of nurtures. But what I realized was as I was capturing those nurtures, when I was finally able to meet the person in person for the first time, it felt like everything was a fight or flight kind of response that I got from people because they might have gotten a flyer from me, but they've never met me. Um, and that's when I decided to start farming, where as much as the conversation was not always intentional about talking about real estate, I always made sure to at least have a pleasant smile. Shared my body language and posture always was, hey, I belong in this neighborhood because I'm sharing something of value. In fact, sometimes I personified myself as their neighbor over being a real estate agent. And over time, obviously, you're going to meet some people that appreciate you and some people that don't. But the people that don't appreciate you will start to realize you're not going to go away. You're going to continue to be in front of them, whether it's through mail pieces that's delivered by you or someone else. But they're going to continually see you, and they have to learn to accept that if your attempt is always to provide value, they're going to start to see you as someone that's valuable as you show up in your frequency that you do.
It's really smart. This is what we teach all the time, that the two ways you can build relationship, and we're talking about, your farm has like 2,500 homes in it. You don't have personal relationships with these people, but you're in relationship with them. And the way you get into relationship is two pieces: consistency and value. And so you've gotten consistent with them and you're adding value. Consistency without value, I say, is annoying. It's just you're constantly there, and what can I do for you? And what can I do for you? And who do you know? And that's consistent, but not valuable. Value without consistency is anonymous. So that if you're sending them something of great value, but you're not in consistent flow with them, they can't remember you. You figured that out. So you're consistent and you're adding value. So let's chunk down those two pieces and tell me a little bit about how do you stay consistent in this farm of 2,500?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was dependent on myself. I wanted to conserve money and not have too many expenses. So I would print flyers and chop it in half at my office. And it wasn't professionally printed. It was not, really nice printed, like, fonts and all that. I just wanted to make sure that I was in front of people. I delivered that myself in the beginning, and then it progressed. As I started to be consistent, maybe got a couple of calls here and there, building my pipeline of sellers. I eventually hired a teenager in the neighborhood because he wanted to earn some cash, and it conserved my time so I can do follow-up, for example, or other important things touching other parts of the farm. And it eventually progressed from there, where I hired obviously USPS, and they're very consistent because they go to their routes every single day. once a month until it became twice a month. And we can talk about the specifics of what goes on in postcard or flyers or what I hand out. But nowadays, what it looks like present day is someone gets something such as a postcard from me every 2 weeks. So that's 24 touches a year. I host two picnics, at Easter and also a back to school fall picnic. We have a shred day. We host movie events at our local theater, but we invite the community as in my farm, to it. And then I also am out passing out four things on a quarterly basis. It works out almost quarterly, but it depends on when the sports schedules start. So for us locally, it's the SF Giants, it's the San Francisco 49ers, and then it's also the Golden State Warriors. And then at the end of the year, I send out a full calendar for the next coming year. So there's 24 touches through mail. There's events that we host that kind of get mixed into the messaging of the postcards. And then I'm out there handing out. Most of the time, people are really appreciative of the sports calendars and or the calendar. And it's something of value. And if I just so happen to stumble upon someone that wants to talk about real estate, we talk about real estate. However, if you don't talk about real estate, it says on anything I'm passing out or things that they've gotten in the mail that I'm a real estate agent. And that kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting. And I think the connotation that I want them to kind of remember me for is that I'm someone that's providing value, that's giving them something that they'll actually use, whether it's information or the calendar. And then also, I relate it to somewhat similar to walking in and enjoying a really good 5-star restaurant where, let's say 2 years pass, you don't exactly recall how the food tastes, but it's a combination of the service and the food and your experience that you had, where you probably can't recall the details, but you will remember how you felt in those interactions when you went to the restaurant. So that's kind of the same for me. I want people to remember that I've been pleasant to deal with. I come from a place of value. And if they ever have a need, they remember me as an agent more likely because of those things.
It's really good. And what I appreciate about what you walked us through is how it grew and developed and changed over time. It evolved. That when you're starting out and wanting to build this farm, yeah, you're out. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's a half a sheet of paper. You're door knocking doors, handing it to them if they're there, leaving it behind if they're not, and then you realize you can scale this as you get leads that come in and different things, and your time focus shifts a little bit. So then it evolves over time. You don't have to go out right now and send a postcard every other week and have 2 events a year and do the calendar magnet and do this and do that. Like literally, if someone's looking at it and going, how do I start? They could start exactly the way you started and then let it evolve, right? Isn't that how this works?
Yeah, let's give a little more detail. When I select the farm, I don't look really at turnover rate. It's all very similar across residential neighborhoods in our area. I also don't really look at too detailed of stats. What I do look at is if I have a choice of 5 different areas, which one has the least amount of friction for me to get results? And the least amount of friction is dictated by, is it competitive? Is there an agent that already has a lot of market share or several that have a lot of market share? That's why I say you want to start with a list of 5. Now, if you have no choice or you want to farm the area you live in and there's already some steep competition, then it's a choice you make up front that you are going to compete. There's 2 portions to it. There's the portion before you get the call, and there's a portion where you show up after the call and you go to the appointment. I think you can always make an impact on how you are able to get the call because of your consistency and they see you. But whether you win at the appointment or not, the level of competition in that area is probably going to dictate your success rate. So for me, I picked an area that I didn't live in, I didn't go to school in, I don't have, at least now I have many friends and people that I know there, but I didn't know many people that live there. I picked it not because I wanted to live there myself. I picked it because it's a place that I know I can get results sooner. And I made a business decision. And now I reframed it for the consumer. I reframe it now as to, I serve the underserved because it's not the high-end luxury affluent neighborhood that, as you can imagine, every agent wants to focus their business on or everyone wants to move to. I focus it from the perspective of myself as a business, easier, less friction, get market share sooner. And then from the consumer's perspective, I serve the underserved because if everyone's chasing the affluent markets to serve, they probably don't give 10 out of 10 effort on the other areas. And there was other points, but I'm sure I
No,
can
this
answer.
is really good. The feeling I get from you is that you have a it's like a casual feel, but it's on purpose. That it's not an in your face, I'm the agent in town. You need to work with me. Who do you know from church or work that wants to buy a home? Like it's not that kind of vibe. It's a hey, I'm here. If I can help you, I'm around. Hey, here's this event coming. Here's the Warriors schedule. Here's we're coming into baseball season. Here's the Giants schedule. If I can help you, let me know. And then if they bring up real estate, you talk about it. That's casual, but it's also on purpose. I picked this neighborhood for a reason. These are the calculated mailers that I send out. This is when I have these two events, and here's how we get people there. That style seems to work. What would your advice be to somebody that wants to have that casual feel and yet also be on purpose?
It is very counterintuitive. The more you can focus on the long term, the more beneficial it is for you in the long term. I think a lot of people that join the business, and don't get me wrong, I want results as soon as I could get them too. However, I think it does take time to build any relationship, whether it's personal or in this case, we're talking about business. I will share with you in our area, it typically takes 6 months to go from initial lead all the way to signed listing. That's at least our team average. But let me give you a little bit more to think about. If it takes 6 months to go from your average lead coming in, however it came in, called you off a postcard, registered on your website, came to an event of yours, never had the intention to sell, but it averaged 6 months. Our average service time is about 4 to 6 weeks of prep, 2 weeks on market, 1 to 2 days negotiation, and another 4 to 5 months of closing for escrow, 30 days plus or minus. So to focus on listings, at least in my perspective, you have to focus on the long term and not necessarily expect immediate results now, at least for farming, because you're not going to really get paid if you take the 6 months plus all the little things 9 months out. And not every agent could be as purposeful to be so patient to wait. But I
Yeah.
think if there is something that you do need to do in farming is to take a counterintuitive approach, build relationships, which takes time, and eventually the business will come to you if you believe it. Now, upfront, if you believe in the process and you have someone like myself in your corner, James, or anyone else that is getting heavy listing market share that's a farmer in your area, trust the process. And I think to your previous kind of statement or question, James, is if I were getting started, I would make sure that I trust the process. I model people that have done it before me, but trusting the process also means you have to be a bit patient. Not necessarily you're not being proactive. You are, in fact, because you're going out there, but you understand that in order for you to build a relationship and eventually convert that opportunity, it takes time.
What you have taught us just now is that there's a predictability to your business, that you understand that if you stay in relationship with people, you know what the timeline is. It's 6 months. You need to you likely know that you got to have this many touches or talk to this many people in order to get the right number of leads you need to get coming in. How does your farming strategy allow you to make your business predictable?
I think I've done it long enough, which I might have the benefit of being a little more experienced or tenured than a new agent. But I've done it long enough where I've seen it come full circle many times. Where if I go out, for example, today and farm for 2 hours, and my intention is just to be out there and to show that I belong and I'm passing things out and it's something of value, that unless they talk about real estate, I talk about real estate. If they don't talk about real estate, they talk about their garden, I talk about their garden. But as long as I could relate to them where they want to lead me, and be intentional about how much time I'm spending per conversation, unless it's really business, I will have the opportunity to ask for their follow-up opportunity, like their contact information, so I can add them to my database. Even if I don't, I set the expectation that, hey, you're going to see me every so often, maybe every 3 or 4 months. And at the same time, if there's anything that changes in your life, you should reach out to me. You might get my mail pieces. And do I look like the person that you received the postcard of? Yes, no, great. Well, either way, I'm a resource to you, whether it's a vendor you need, whether it's questions about the market, whether it's needing to buy and sell, or you know someone that wants to buy and sell. I'm here to help and serve. I'm here to answer questions before I ask you for any business as well. And that's basically my pitch and my philosophy. And the more conversations I have, the more often I'm out there. If it's 2 hours this week or 2 hours today, 5 hours a day, and I'm out there more often, I'm building relationships, whether they exist in my database or not. I'm going back to the same areas, and there's compounding benefit to that.
That's the casual but on purpose approach that I was talking about earlier. It is consistent, it is value. I mean, it's a lot of great stuff there. But I imagine that you've learned some lessons on this journey too when it comes to farming. You've made some mistakes, or some things didn't work out that way you thought they would. What are some of those?
I think one of them that comes to mind is I like to be away from the herd. And what I mean by that is, I think we have a running joke on our team where we say, what would your average agent do? And if your average agent would do this, don't do that. Do this instead. Your average agent is going to focus their marketing and their lettering and their call to action on themselves. And it reminds me of Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Building a story brand teaches us that you are not the protagonist, you are the Sherpa. You're helping the family or the person that go up to Mount Everest. So your average agent's idea of promoting themselves, and that being the most important part of what they're sending out, the messaging, is counterintuitive to showing up in the right way to provide value. The opposite would be to showcase the families or to showcase the properties that, let's say, you were involved with or you sold, or to come from a place of value of delivering information that's timely, that's should be received by the resident as something that they learn something from. And our marketing, as much as there's one page that always has our contact information, that should not be the number one highlight of your message. Your message should always be about something about the community, about the market, about another family you helped, but never really is it about solely me. Yes, it is supposed to be about self-promotion, but the more your consistent message is about them and what they want to see, the more likely you're going to experience success because they realize that you're focused on the right thing. Because any service provider that is the famous analogy, you walk into your doctor's office and before you are able to talk about your headache you're experiencing, this person shows you their diploma from Stanford, their master's degree and doctor's degree from this other university, the list of clients and the folders that he has behind him of all his clients that he successfully cured. When you have a problem, you don't care about that. And also, right, if no one's solicited for you to be there, they also don't care about your your accomplishments and your awards. So I think that's the counterintuitive approach that we should remind ourselves that the most important thing is not us. It's actually them and what they're receiving, what they see, and we should make it about that.
We're not the hero, the community is the hero, the people we've helped are the hero, and we're showcasing that, and we are their support in allowing those things to happen. If you had an agent who is, I mean, new, but also in production, I mean, you were a good agent when you made this decision, and you had somebody that said, all right, look, my leads are down. My pipeline is not as thick as it used to be. So I'm going to go into pick at this neighborhood using the strategies you've given, and I'm going to go start farming the neighborhood. What are 2 or 3 steps that they should use to start after they pick the community like you taught us earlier?
Yeah. So let's say you finalized the exact place that you're going to farm. If there's 2 things you can do. You can either door knock or you can canvas. Door knocking is you hit every door, intentionally trying to have a conversation. Canvassing is you leave something snug behind so it doesn't fly away, but you hit every door as well. My approach is, me personally, I like a bigger farm so I can have more houses. And then if it's, average turnover rate of 3% or less, then the bigger the number multiplied by the same percentage, you have more opportunities. Yes, you might have less conversations, but I'll tell you, if you canvas per hour, you probably, in our neighborhoods, you'll hit 75 plus or minus doors per hour. You will still have 6 to 8 conversations. If you knock and intentionally wait to see if someone opens the door, which sometimes they're talk through the door, and that's a contact, but that's not as quality of a conversation. You're probably going to still have about 12 plus or minus conversations, which is better per hour, but you can only touch about 25 to 30 doors if you wait. So I'm all about volume and efficiency. And the 6 to 8 conversations I can have while canvassing, they're what I call serendipitous, in passing, where it feels more natural. You're passing someone, they're taking the trash bins out, or they're grabbing the groceries and going back into home. They just got off work, they picked up the kids, they're doing some yard work. Those are talking points as well, where it's not as much friction as knocking on the door and expecting someone to open and they think you have a pitch for them. So if I were you, I would probably start canvassing. If you feel comfortable door knocking in time, you should. whether you spend money up front or not on USPS, for example, someone else delivering mail for you, I would say you should build a reputation with yourself and self-confidence that you're willing to be out there for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months consecutively. Every door gets something from you those first 3 months on a monthly basis. Then you've proven to yourself that this is worth doing, and maybe you can spend a little bit more money, invest in a better flyer quality, better messaging, have someone design it, have USPS pay for it if you're a bit more experienced and you have a budget to build the farm. But overall, if I were you, I would just commit to 3 to 6 months, hit every door once a month. Don't worry about the quality of the message. In fact, as you walk all these hours in your farm, you're going to start to think about, I probably could have made this call to action better, or my titling could have been better, or I could use a different photo. Then reiterate for month 2, but commit to month 1, print everything, and go out there. There's no replacement for just being out there and hitting every door the first time.
Great stuff, Wilson. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing with us. I truly appreciate it. Congratulations on what you've built there, and thank you for pouring back into this community to help them do the same.
Thank you so much for having me.